Hi, my name is Kinlock and I really like musicals. So when I see a musical, I have lots of thoughts and then I want to share those thoughts. So hopefully that's why you're here, because you want to hear my thoughts about Six, the musical. Which, is it a musical? It's a bit of a question I have, but we can get to that later. Let's start with Six. More than just a number, it's the name of a show. Why is it the name of this show? Well, it's got 6 characters in it. 6 women who were all married to the same man. Oh, don't worry, not at the same time. They were all married to King Henry VIII of England. You know, that guy from olden times, 1500 and something. I'm not a historian. But one thing I do know about history is that it often gets told predominantly from one perspective, and you might not hear about the other perspective. And that's kind of one of the conceits of this show, is that we haven't necessarily heard the women's side of the story. And so that's what this show does. It centers these 6 women. They each get to tell their own story, and they do so in the form of pop music, as pop stars, which is such a fun thing to do. I love pop stars. I really do. I'm not being facetious. I actually do. So you might be thinking, didn't they all die, and some of them died and then others came along? They weren't all in the same place at one time. How does that work? One of the things I really appreciate about this show is that it doesn't waste time trying to come up with some explanation. It's not like, oh, so we're in the afterlife, or oh, so they're all zombies, or oh, this is 6 girls at school imagining that they are all queens for a day. It's just like they come out on stage and they introduce themselves and they're like, hi, Melbourne, I'm Catherine of Aragon, I'm Jane Seymour, I'm whoever. And you're just kind of like, oh yeah, of course you are. And it makes no sense, but it makes all the sense in the world, because you just believe what they're saying, because they are saying it with conviction, and it's just like, oh yeah, great. I totally buy into it, and it's part of the magic of this show, is that you've got these 6 people who are all famous for the same reason, that they were married to the same guy, but they didn't necessarily all know each other, but some of them did and some of them didn't. And yet you're kind of imagining what this relationship between the 6 of them might have been like. It's all just this gorgeous thought experiment, and maybe that's a big part of its appeal, but I think the biggest part of its appeal is that the music is banging. Just so good. This thing is basically going to a pop concert, or 6 pop concerts in one. It's just, the whole time is like, yep, that's what I look like when I attend pop concerts. You know it. I have seen this show a couple of times now, and it's impossible not to just have this giant grin on your face for the majority of it, because it's just so infectious. And yep, not only is it really just kind of infectious, upbeat music, but they are just serving with the looks and the attitude, and the dance moves are just very tight and in sync and very satisfying to watch. It's just very good. But possibly the most rewarding part for me is the lyrics. The lyrics are just so clever, and I think that's why you can kind of keep coming back to these songs and re-listening, because not only are they catchy and stuff, but the lyrics are just so clever and good, and I want to share lyrics, which isn't something I normally do, but that's how much I'm just like obsessed with these lyrics. Like even in the opening number, there's so many like unexpected rhymes and stuff, and then to do like a triple rhyme, and there's these clever lines where they do like a double triple rhyme. I'm sure there's a more technical term for it than that, but what I'm talking about is they say like, welcome to the show, to the history mix. Well, welcome to the show, to the history mix, switching up the flow as we add the prefix. Everybody knows that we used to be 6 wives. And so the way there's like the show, flow, knows, and history mix, prefix, B6, those are unexpected words to rhyme in that way, and the fact that they all do, but the song just makes perfect sense as well. Like they could have just said that, and like you'd be like, yeah, that's exactly the way you would say that. So clever, so clever. And then there's all these like references in the lyrics to other pop songs, like I'm a Survivor, or Come on ladies, let's get in reformation. Or, but then there's also lyrics that refer to musical theatre, which is also always very satisfying for me. Like Jane Seymour says something about, you'll suddenly see more, and it's a reference to Suddenly Seymour, from that one with the plant. Oh no, don't eat me, that one. Yeah, and do you know what I really love is a bilingual pun? And there's a bit of that too in House of Holbein, which is basically about, women of the court being kind of paired up with a man, and it's sort of like the old version of a dating app. And so everyone's being rated on like whether they're a 10 or some other number. And they say, ignore the fear and you'll be fine. We'll turn this fear into a 9. So just say yeah, don't say 9. And yes, it's rhyming fear, and it's rhyming 9 and 9. And normally that'd be like, you're just rhyming the same word with the same word. But the fact that they're in different languages makes it so satisfying for me. I just love that. It's very clever, and I could listen to it over and over. So part of each of these 6 girls, women, people being given their own songs means you kind of have 6 different styles of music a little bit. It's all very like power pop with incredible vocals, but it's been talked about quite a bit that a lot of the inspiration for each of the 6 was sort of modeled on different pop stars. And this show was developed in 2016, 2017. And so, it was drawn on pop stars of that time or earlier. And so like, Aragon was based on like Beyonce, J-Lo, Jennifer Hudson. And Berlin was based on the Miley Cyrus, Avril Lavigne, Lily Allen kind of vibe. Jane Seymour was based on like an Adele, Sia, Celine Dion kind of sound. Anna of Cleves was apparently based on like a mixture of Nicki Minaj and Rihanna. Catherine Howard was based on like Britney and Ariana Grande. And then Catherine Parr apparently is based on the sounds of like Alicia Keys and Emily Sandé. And that's all very good to know, and I can absolutely see those influences. But I wonder now that we're in 2024, it's the future, I wonder if those references still mean the same thing to people, because like you think about Miley Cyrus now and she's in her Bob Mackie era, right? So, she's not poking her tongue out so much anymore. And so I was wondering, just as like a thought experiment, whether it could be fun to try and come up with more current reference points for like if they were writing it now, which 6 pop stars of the moment would they be referencing? And I don't know if I've quite managed it because, you know, the references that they used are the references that you can quite hear distinctly in the music, but I just thought it could be fun to try. And so I was thinking Catherine of Aragon could be like Lizzo inspired, and Berlin could be like an Olivia Rodrigo kind of inspiration. And then Jane Seymour. Well, this is an interesting one. Jane Seymour, I was thinking, you know, it's the stand and sing, like the park and bark, like the big belty heart will go on kind of moment. And the pop stars that came to mind for me were like Pink and Kelly Clarkson. And this is kind of exactly what I'm getting at, is that like that's kind of the way I think of them now, as being like big songstresses who can really sell a ballad, whereas like Pink from back in the day was way more edgy and Miley Cyrus-y, for lack of another way of putting it. I don't know. Kelly Clarkson from back in the day was very like angry, never again vibes. And they have had these long careers and now are in a place where they are these upstanding women with big backstories and who can just stand and deliver. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So Anna of Cleves, well, that's a very like brat moment, right? House of Holbein and Anna of Cleves has this amazing song, which we'll get to. So I was thinking like Charlie XCX, Billie Eilish, that sort of inspiration. Catherine Howard, she's the very like sexy but witty sort of thing. So to me, that's like Selena Gomez and Sabrina Carpenter. Catherine Parr. I was thinking like Leanne de Havas and maybe her, but I'm not too sure about that one. Anyway, I just thought that was a bit of a thought experiment. If you disagree with me, go ahead, disagree with me. That's fine. I'm not even sure I agree with myself. But yes, what I was kind of starting to get to with this whole like Kelly Clarkson Pink discussion was the fact that we live in a time now where these women who we see in the media and whose careers we follow and stuff, we get to see them shift and change. You know, Madonna is the most kind of iconic example in a lot of ways because she's famous for reinventing herself and going through all these different eras. You know, Taylor Swift has a whole tour called Eras, you know, because she's had this long career where you get to play with these different personas and mature. And sadly, that's not an opportunity that these wives of King Henry VIII had, because their lives were often tragically cut short, or they were just kind of shoved off into a castle or, you know, sidelined, just kind of ignored. They might have had this one brief moment where we got to see them do this big shiny thing and then discarded. And so I find it interesting to assess now we do get to see women go through all the different stages of life, and yay for that, because that is ultimately kind of what happens in Six. Without being too spoilery, it does kind of do this reimagining thing where it's like, well, what if we did get to see them go on with their lives and make something of it as, you know, creative, independent beings, and maybe they'd be this super group of pop stars. Maybe that. Yeah. Oh, yes. So the other thing I wanted to say, you know, while it's so cool that these pop music lyrics are referencing musicals and referencing other pop songs, they also get to reference things in history which make me want to like learn more about the actual lives of these women, and like nursery rhymes, and there's just so many interesting references that your mind's just constantly like being stimulated in a lot of ways, which is very satisfying. Like for instance, Anna of Cleves. I can't not say her name in that German accent, like Anna of Cleves. Sings, I'm the queen of the castle, get down, you dirty rascal. And, that's a familiar refrain from the playground of childhood days for many of us, I imagine. But she's also got this amazing line, which is, I look more rad than Lutheranism. I look more rad than Lutheranism. I want to use that on my friends. Like, girl, if you got new hair, you look more rad than Lutheranism. I'll try it. I'll let you know how it goes, I guess. So that is my explanation of what Six, the musical, is, how it was written and developed, and stuff, and the story it tells. But when you go see a show, there's so much more to just the story it tells. There's also the particular performers that you get to see and the way that it all comes to life on stage. And this is a knockout production. Wow. Part of what is so satisfying about this show is that the songs are written in a way that is very challenging. They're not easy to sing. But that means that when someone does sing them well, it's very impressive. It's like the Olympics of singing, and you get to see these 6 Olympic singers of 6 different styles, and they're all just like riffing all over the place, and it's just very impressive. I could not fault any of them as singers, and my ears were just very, very happy listening to them. But on top of all that, there's an extra element that I really enjoyed and means something more personal to me, which is that these performers in these roles did not feel like they were copying anyone else's performance, because this show has had quite a fan following for years now, and so it's had very successful seasons in the UK and in the US and in Australia as well. And so we've had the chance to sort of see different performers do these roles, and I love that when someone new steps into the role, it seems like there's this wonderful culture of encouraging them to really put their own stamp on it. It's not like an Elphaba in Wicked kind of thing where it's like, these are the designated riffs and you can only choose from these ones. It's just like, find the character yourself. Find the musicality yourself. And I've heard some different takes on things that have just been so satisfying. And it also just means that I think you're really encouraging the performers to play to their own strengths. And one example of that is that, from what I can tell, the performers are encouraged to perform in their own accents, because in this current Australian production, they have Australian accents, and I love that. And maybe they've modified their, singing voices slightly to make it sound a bit more poppy or something, but I love that Australianness is in there. And in the cast that I saw, I was particularly getting that from the Anna of Cleves character, who just had this kind of like recognizable bratish energy, but it was like a real kind of Aussie, oh yeah, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not doing a great job at describing it, but it was just like a recognizable Aussie character, and yeah, come on, mate, bro, nah. It just had sort of edge to it, but not in a way that I think would have read as really fake. if you're like trying to be an Avril Lavigne skater girl. It's just like that's not a trope that exists in Australian society, and they were kind of giving us something more recognizable, and I loved that. But I think part of the reason that speaks to me personally is that I do have such a messy accent, right? Because I'm from New Zealand, but I live in Australia, but I've lived in the UK and Canada, and I've kind of modified my voice wherever I've gone because I'm like, I want people to understand me, and so I might slightly change various vowels. And the word sex in particular is a problematic one because it's just like, are you saying sex? Are you saying socks? Are you saying socks? I'm like, no, it's the number after 5. And so I kind of love that people are being encouraged to perform in their own voices. I'm like, yes, more of that, please. And it becomes so much more of about the direct connection between the performer and the audience, because it's like, I want to speak in a way that's true to me, but I also want to like maybe modify it enough that it's clear for you to understand, but I'm also going to speak so I'm going to find that middle ground between my familiar dialect and your familiar dialect, and that way it's like a more immediate connection, and it has so much more truth to it, and it forms a bond, and it works on me. And I wonder if that's a part of the reason why there is this enormous fan following of this show, because there really is. I wasn't really that aware of it before going to it this most recent time, but it has this great following, especially it seems among the younger generation, and people are going to this live musical theater show and like dressing up in costumes and like really getting into, oh, I love this version of this character and this actress and stuff, and like I've never seen that with like musicals and theater, especially from that generation. Sometimes it feels like musical theater's dying out, or we're only getting to, shown the same old shows that have been around a long time. And so when you get this like fresh injection of a new audience coming in, it's a relief, and it makes me happy, and I want more of it. More, please. I mean, I don't want to sound greedy, but like the future just keeps on coming, and so the new things just need to keep on coming to feed the young theatre audiences. If we're developing an audience with 6, well, what's their next course going to be? Come on, someone write 7 now.